Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, a podcast all about growing your network and building your brand through traditional and digital networking techniques. I'm Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. I've been strengthening brands through PR for over 35 years, and now I'm celebrating the success of executives, influencers, business owners, and entrepreneurs from all around the world, all of whom have cultivated their brands and broadened their networks through traditional and digital networking methods. Each week, I interview one of these interesting and influential individuals and provide an opportunity for you, the PR Maven Nation, to gain insights from their strategies and stories. So stay tuned for this week's episode, and thanks for listening. The PR Maven, and I have been working in PR throughout my very long career, and I have a special interest in personal branding. That's what makes you stand out from others who do the same thing that you do and attracts people to what you have to offer. I'm a keynote speaker, an author, and a columnist for the Forbes Agency Council and Main Biz. My audiences have said that helping them think about their superpower has changed the way they think about their careers and their lives. I hope you like this episode, and I hope you'll share it with others who might be interested in hearing it. And I'm very excited about today's guest. It's Carolyn Delaney, who is the founder and CEO of Journey Enterprises. Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, Carolyn.
Thanks, Nancy. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you too, Carolyn. We'll get into that a little bit later about why I'm so excited. But I first want to share your background. Carolyn Delaney is the founder and publisher of Journey Enterprises, a media company on a mission to make recovery from addiction visible in places where people live, eat, work, and shop. After spending 20 years leading IT departments, Carolyn saw an opportunity to elevate and promote inspiring personal recovery stories, recovery programs, and resources in order to save lives by amplifying a message of hope and reducing addiction stigma. She envisions a world where all options for recovery are known and accessible. A world where people are celebrated for reclaiming their lives from addiction and positively impacting those around them. Carolyn does that now with a team through a print magazine, community events, and speaking engagements. So Carolyn, tell us about your career and why you made a complete career change at age 52.
I know, it's almost like unusual, isn't it? Yeah, thanks. And, just even listening to the reading of that bio, I spent 28 years running large IT departments in corporate. So I ran mostly call centers. My sweet spot was middleware. So creating systems that integrated and streamlined processes and data and reporting, and sitting in between the C-suite and the programmers and the systems engineers. So to have a bio that includes being visible and being public and being and doing is such a complete change from my entire career, my professional career. So I ran IT departments, tech, behind the scenes. I worked from home for decades before it was even cool. And at 52, so in 2018, I just saw a real need to lift up and elevate and promote inspiring recovery stories. And there just really wasn't, the visibility of the 20 plus person recovery programs. When people think recovery from addiction or alcoholism, they automatically think 12 steps, like AA. And there's this whole other world that is not AA. And I didn't know that until 2017. And as a woman I've been in recovery since 1993. And as a woman in long-term recovery, I was surprised to hear about these other programs, and I thought more people should know. I thought more people
Yeah.
should know.
Well, I just love that you have such a mission driven company and you personify and humanize that mission. And you're so optimistic and enthusiastic. And I think that that really helps give people hope. And it just comes through in everything that you talk about. And it comes through in the pages of your magazine also.
Thanks. Thanks.
So, Carolyn,
So I got together with a group of friends and we said, let's do this. And we started a print magazine. And our main goal at the time was to get it behind the bars of the prisons and the jails, to let them know, to let people know that there's hope out there and that addiction is treatable and that recovery is possible and that there's help and support available. And, that message needed to be in print. It needed to be perfect bound to go into the prisons and the jails. So that's why we started in print.
yeah. And I think that's actually a lot of people may not be actually even in prison or jail, but their addiction is like jail or prison, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
like they're not really living their lives because the drugs or alcohol are in charge of everything they do.
Yes, exactly. And that's, I think when now 5 years later is what I've learned is that, 75% of people who struggle with active addiction are employed, which I did not know that. I did not
Wow,
know that when I
that's
started.
amazing.
It's amazing, right? So even though we started initially to get the message into people who are, serving consequences to their behavior because of addiction, that when we started putting the magazine out into communities at businesses, I started to learn a lot about just the demographics of people who struggle with active addiction.
Right. Well, Carolyn, one of the reasons that we connected is that you actually have been following my brand and my teachings for many years, and I didn't even know it until recently, and it was so amazing. So, can you tell me how you've learned from the PR Maven over the years?
Yeah. So thanks. So when I started this, like, okay, we're going to do a magazine thing, my husband was working at Portland Media Center, and that's where you were recording your podcast at the time. And I knew nothing about marketing or media or branding, anything like that. That was just such a foreign world to me because I'm a programmer. And he said, you might want to check out this woman, PR Maven. And then I started to listen, and some of the things that really landed for me was personal branding and like just to be myself wherever I am. Like I didn't need to, I didn't need to have a different persona on these different platforms. I just needed to be myself and then tailor it to where I was putting my message. So that was a really important lesson for me because if you start to Google digital marketing help, oh my God. Oh my, it's so finding you in the message map and the personal branding and also even the like network circles like that being able to really draw out like who am I, and who is the person that I want to be the same online as I am offline. And in order to do that, I need to get really clear on my messaging because I have a long story, right? I have a personal recovery, I have a magazine, I have a professional, so really getting clear on what is it that I want to articulate um in this role that I'm in as Journey. And so I started to watch first I started to listen to the podcast, and then I got your books. You have two of them, and I got your books. And I started to I don't want to say like apply it as much as it became like I started to live it. Like, okay, I'm going to be Carolyn on LinkedIn as I am on Facebook. I'm going to be the same Carolyn in person as I am on LinkedIn. So it really started to become like almost just part of who I, how I show up in the world, how I show up. And it's a whole lot easier to show up as yourself, right? Like makes a whole lot easier.
Yeah, it is. It
Yeah.
is. Yeah, that's something I've discovered too. Is
Yeah,
just being
and
yourself.
some people are not going to align with what we're doing, which is totally fine, and I'm so okay with that. I'm just really okay with that. So, and the other thing that I got from you around personal branding is that, at least for the journey side, is that for those that we attract, they can help ripple our messaging if I'm really clear, right? Like as I'm really clear in our messaging that recovery is possible and addiction is treatable and help and support is available, that now you can ripple that, because I'm not like all over the place with my messaging, right? We just keep reinforcing the same, and amplify hope became our tagline, and we have it on everything.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
it really, I think it took like an overwhelming amount of content out in the ethers and really helped me to kind of shape how I've grown into this space.
Well, I'm so thrilled that I've been able to help you, and hopefully, because I've helped you build this amazing community, that it's helping people reclaim their lives, because I know how much it can impact not only the addict themselves, but also obviously all their family and their friends. And so you've built this community that's just so hopeful and also educational too. And the resources that you're bringing are helping people to like get out of prison.
Yeah. Well,
Literally.
and to have conversations. I think one thing that's been really important is that one, that all this, there's science behind addiction that is just not widely known. I mean, there's so much information available. Like, I feel like our role in that is to lift up and elevate what's already going on. Like, we're not creating anything new. We're really amplifying messaging that already exists in the world so that other people can have the same types of conversations, right? We're not all felons. We're not all in jail. Like, this
Right.
is what recovery looks like. There's hope in that. There's
Yeah.
hope in the fact that other people can ripple that messaging.
Right. Exactly. And so how have you used public relations to promote the magazine and build your community?
I think part of that is this is what recovery looks like, because every personal recovery story we tell in our magazine and online, that the flip of that is true. They were an alcoholic or drug addict struggling with addiction, right? So the flip of that is true. So I think that by putting some humanness to these stories, that we're able to build reduce stigma. Like you said, not everybody is in jail, right? Like that's not the population of people. That's not the only population of people that struggle with addiction. And
Right.
so with PR, like, I think publicly being able to say that I'm a woman in recovery, back 20, 50 years ago, it automatically implied that I'm a 12 stepper. And that is not true today. There are so many recovery programs, so many recovery paths. And I think that messaging about the multiple paths to recovery, we need the personal recovery stories to help get that message out. So people can be visible without blowing the traditions of the 12-step community, which one is anonymity, is that you can say you're a person in recovery without saying you're a member of a 12-step community or a member of a certain fellowship. And so publicity helps to get that word out, that there are many programs. And then the other thing is that the more people that are visible, I believe the more people will be visible, not only from a personal recovery perspective, but for those who are champions of asking for help and champions that want other people to know that it's okay to ask for help. We want you to know. We want you to know and get the help that you need. And the last is awareness building. Just, that this is it's not just a main thing. It's not just a woman thing. It's not just a political thing. Like, this is something that we all that we all have an ability to do something about. And
Right.
we're all our own little media companies now. Like, how lucky are we that we didn't need ABC or CBS to say this is an important message, right? Everybody
Yeah.
has that power right now in their pocket.
Exactly. Isn't that amazing? And of course, because I've been in PR for so long, I've seen the evolution from the time when we really did depend on the newspapers and the television stations and the media companies. And then when all of a
Yeah.
sudden I could become my own media company, wow, I feel like it was awesome.
Yes, yes. And to be able to, we all have that ability. And for me, what I hope our message is like in the conversation about addiction, choose wisely what you amplify.
Right.
Choose wisely, because yes, there's devastation. Yes, there's bad consequences to active addiction and the nightmare of active addiction, that we see that all over the newspaper, all over media. We see that all day, every day, in our communities, in our schools, everywhere. But as a person in recovery who knows more, and as more people understand that there's a path out, that it's not a choice, that the more people can amplify that message as well. Like, don't just share out the bad, share out the good.
Right. Yeah. I think that's awesome that you're doing that you're a voice of hope. And you've also built a whole community around your brand. And of course, having a strong community does help build a strong brand. So, what have you done to build that community?
Yeah, thanks. It's over the last 5 years, it's really grown. So I keep redrawing. What does a community look like around our magazine, our brand? So we're Journey Enterprises now because we're out in community. We're on the stage. We're doing a little book. But what I found early on is that the magazine was for the recovery community. I learned quickly that there is not one recovery community. There are thousands of recovery communities. It's massive. And even in the state of Maine, no one person speaks for the recovery community. There's so many of them. And what's happened is people have attracted themselves to our message. So our community keeps growing. So we found employers that are recovery friendly, recovery informed. They want to get a message out. Chimbro, they've been doing this work since way before it was even cool. And they just treat their people differently, right? Like they just treat their people differently. So Holy Donut, they also treat their people differently. So the community started to grow organically with those people who are attracted to our messaging. And they want other people to know that they believe in what we're saying. So they believe like we believe, and they want to be part of that community that is getting the message out about hope. And so our lines keep redrawing. So we have everyone from our vendor that prints the magazine to employers to faith leaders to trade associations. Like, so our community is growing and swelling in the state of Maine, just much like it's doing nationally with this conversation. Much like
Right.
it's doing
Yeah,
nationally.
exactly. And communities of people have been a pillar of the recovery movement. Is that true?
Yes, yes. And I think that I see it because for banding together, it's kind of like joining a lifeboat off the Titanic, right? Like once you're in that lifeboat and you didn't go down with the ship, that there's this common bond that happens with people when they survive that nightmare. And in the 12 step and recovery programs in general, whether it's the 12-step community or smart recovery is another one, life ring is one, wellbriety is one. So in each of these individual programs, there's an ability to help the person I used to be 5 years ago, right? Like the person that I was. So the communities themselves start to formed organically just around the way that they survived addiction.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And actually, each of those communities have what I would call brand ambassadors, or people who go out and attract others to join the community and the movement. And
Yeah,
of course,
yeah.
you're the chief brand ambassador in my mind. Well, we're going to take a short break and come back with more from Carolyn. But first, I want to talk about our experience with our sponsor, which is a new company called Pitchcraft, and another PR professional here in Maine named Elaine Terrio Courier, who I know, like, and trust. had referred me to Pitchcraft several months ago, and many of the people on Marshall Communications team have become Pitchcraft members. And now we're going to hear a little more from the founders of Pitchcraft.
My name is Kelsey Ogletree.
I'm Derek Ogletree.
And we co-founded Pitchcraft to put the relationships back in public relations. I've been a journalist for about 10 years now and was laid off from my job as an editor in 2017. I decided to take the plunge into freelance writing, and really what I noticed starting in 2020 is that public relations professionals started scrambling to really figure out how to pitch stories to writers and editors during the pandemic. So that's when we really started developing the concept for Pitchcraft, which is a month-to-month membership platform really focused on helping public relations professionals build those relationships with independent journalists and editors. By joining Pitchcraft, you could save hours of research time week to week. You'll get the opportunity to personally get to know a new freelance writer every week, the opportunity to interface with editors and writers live in monthly pop-up discussions, the chance to build community with the rest of our members in weekly calls, access to e-commerce and affiliate resources, a master pitching calendar, and more. We'd love to show you how Pitchcraft can become an essential part of your PR toolkit. If you like the sound of that, book a demo with us today.
This episode is powered by Pitchcraft. Pitchcraft has been generous enough to share a discount code to share with you. If you use code PRMAVEN in all caps at checkout, you will get $200 off your first month. There is a link in the show notes. So welcome back. And today we're talking with Carolyn Delaney on the PR Maven Podcast, powered by Pitchcraft. So Carolyn, you have a vision for the world. What is your vision and how do you communicate that vision with the public?
I envision a world where when people realize that they're addicted to whatever it is, whether it's a substance or a behavior, that that they feel that they can ask for help from people who love and care for them, and that they're able to access recovery support along the way to really become whole again and release, find some freedom from that addiction. And I also envision a world where people are celebrated for surviving. The nightmare of addiction is not one that I would wish anyone could relate to, because you'd have to go through it to understand it. So, what I see it's definitely changed even since 2019 because of the horrific opioid epidemic, is that we're starting to see more and more recovery. In 2019, we weren't seeing any recovery stories. It was all awful. So I see a world where when someone realizes they're addicted to something, or they're trying to stop something and they're not able to, that there'll be enough messaging out in the world that says, we want you to ask for help. Like, please trust me enough to ask me for help. I see that messaging all through where we work, our places of employment, where we bank. The more we put that message out to other people, that we all start to be able to amplify that. Like, that we all get to be our own media company, right? We all get to amplify this message, because the more people that talk about it, the more people will talk about it. And the more people that talk about it, more people will find help.
Right. And you talked before about having a message map. And I always say that if you have a message map, then everyone in your brand community can sing from the same song sheet, like in church.
Yes. And that's also given us, the message mapping has also, in core values, like we've got it has allowed us to hold up conversations to our messaging to see if it aligns and hold true to that. So we've had to make some difficult decisions around, like, that's not a topic we want to get involved in. That does not align with our messaging.
Right.
So it's really helped to keep our messaging and the places we show up and how we show up really dialed into our mission,
Yeah. That's great. What has surprised you the most about doing this work now?
A couple of things. One is the complete lack of understanding about recovery programs out in communities. So we did 157 events last year where we brought our resources out into communities, everywhere from Dunkin' Donuts to the Blueberry Festival in Machias. Like we've been all over the state of Maine. And we'll continue to do that because having conversations with eyeball to eyeball conversations with people out in the community gives us a lot of information. One thing that's by far the most enlightening was that some people don't even know Alcoholics Anonymous is free. Like, just complete lack of awareness. When people say, "Oh, everybody knows that already," no, that is not true. That is not a true statement. So lack of awareness of what's available out there. I didn't know until 2017 that there were other recovery programs, so the lack of awareness, the fact that everyone is affected some way, shape, or 99.9% of people are affected by addiction in some way, shape, or form. Statistically, National Safety Council, check them out. Statistically. So if everybody's affected, there's an opportunity for us to learn how to have the conversation and to talk about it without this like overwhelming secrecy and shame that can get piled on top of this very personal topic. So that was the other thing. Everyone's affected. And then probably the best heart thing that I've learned is I have only met a handful of people who do not want to help. Like a handful out of the thousands of people I've met over 5 years. Most people say, I know it's a problem. So and so, I've got it in my family. I'm in recovery. I know someone. I worked with someone. But what can I do as just somebody out in my community? What can I do to help get out this message of hope? Overwhelmingly, the number one response that I get when I speak at places, overwhelmingly, and that's really good for the heart because that's easy to solve.
Yeah.
That's it's good for the heart. There's usually a hug, right? Like,
Yeah, right.
so that's been a definite lesson for me because I went into it thinking you guys are like other people are going to judge me, right? I was a homeless, I struggled. And as an alcoholic and a drug addict now in recovery for 31 years, I came into this thinking that people would be judging me and that there would be like stigma piled on top of me and that I would just be overwhelmed with people, talking crap. And that has not been the case at all. At all. There is definitely stigma there, but it's really lack of understanding.
Right.
It's just that's been my experience. I know there's definitely opportunities for stigma stuff, but I was expecting it and I didn't find it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you, as I said, you personify the hopefulness because you are authentic. I mean, you've walked that road yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Carolyn, some people think that print is dead and others believe that print is more important than ever. What do you feel about the role of print magazines in today's society?
I love this question. So when I started Journey, I was asked two questions. Why not a nonprofit and why print in 2019, right? Like everybody was digital, everything's online. What I've found for print is that one, we are welcomed into people's mailboxes, right? You can't ask for a better relationship than that. So we're a free print magazine. That when people pick up the magazine, they know that it's not, it's not, I am who I say I am. And we've worked really hard. We've invested time, effort, energy, and money to put this magazine in your hands. Right. So there's a relationship there that I think is you don't get that same type of a relationship with online that there's a little bit of a barrier there, right? So when people pick it up, we've heard people say you can feel the love in the magazine. Like we love that, right? Like you can feel the care when you're turning it. It's high quality, it's thicker paper. we don't waste any, like, we want it to be a high quality product, and we work hard to make sure that it is. So I think that print can communicate an emotion that online and digital only can't. And in this topic, personal, intimate emotion is like, that's our jam. Like, this is, so that's why I think print is important. Transparency, like, I'm not a 10-year-old boy on a keyboard pretending to be a 57-year-old female, right? Like, this is who I am. And yeah, I think we're protect our audience like a mama bear, because we prioritize the psychological safety of our audience. We're not just putting it out there for anybody to read, that we know this is a tough topic. And so we're able to control what goes in print. We're able to extend that trust from our readers to our advertisers. We don't just let anybody advertise on our magazine, so with print, I can manage that in a way that almost sounds a little controlling.
No,
I just realized that as it was coming out of my mouth, I was like, oh, that sounds very controlling, Carolyn.
No, I think like you said, you're a mama bear. You're protecting your people.
Yeah. And we really can do that with print. And we are also online. We're also on a website, and, we have the digital version. And that gives people the discreetness of reading, right? And same with the magazine, like the people pick up the magazine at the grocery stores or at a coffee shop, or, while they're getting their tires changed, so they're able to be introduced to the message of hope while they're sitting doing their everyday stuff. The other thing that I really love about print, and Journey in particular, is that Google is great if you know what question to ask, right? If you're from an SEO perspective, from a search engine perspective, from a you can find out any information you want right now online through Google, but you have to know the question to ask. And
Right.
two, you need to phrase an emotion with Google. This is an emotional topic, so people don't look for help until it's like something, a life-altering event has happened. Hospital, ER, jail, OUI, like something devastating has to happen for family members to start looking for help. And by putting the print magazine where you get your tires changed, or are sitting waiting for your teller at your bank, that you're accessing, that information starts to get in front of you, hopefully before a life-altering event, that says, hey, I read this magazine where these resources exist. And so I feel on some level we're able to put the message out there before severe consequences happen. And we couldn't do that online. You have to Google, right? You have to ask a question online.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Actually, I think that print magazines are kind of coming back into vogue. There's a lot of companies like Yeti or Patagonia, kind of hip companies that are producing branded magazines. So I think you're ahead of the trend.
That's very unusual for me, really.
Congratulations.
I've been in before, that's for sure. I think so we print 15 or 20,000 every other month, and we run out every other month. So
it's amazing.
We just have we have a lot of requests for the magazine. For the magazine. Yeah.
Well, Carolyn, if people want to get in touch with you or get a copy of the magazine or get involved with the community, what do they need to do?
Visit us on journey-magazine.com. We have free subscriptions, so you can subscribe right online for free, and we'll mail it to your mailbox. Or if you're in the state of Maine, we're in 1,000 businesses throughout the state, at banks, grocery stores, coffee shops, car dealerships. So yeah, local libraries. We're available in most local libraries in the state of Maine. And of course, LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. It's really where a lot of the conversations that I have with some of the national voices around recovery options exist. So very active on LinkedIn.
Well, that's great. And yeah, I'd love to talk to you sometime about LinkedIn, because there's a lot of great things happening with that. And I'll probably do an episode about creating a pod on LinkedIn. I'm now part of a pod of people who are supporting each other on LinkedIn to help elevate their posts.
Nice.
And I'll probably do an episode about it. So I'll be sure to share that with you.
Yeah.
Well, Carolyn, this has been really great. I just love your enthusiasm, and I love the fact that I was able to help you to own your personal brand, because you are just so enthusiastic and joyful and hopeful, and that inspires me too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. And if anyone has any questions for our guest or would like to hear more about a certain topic, they can email me at nancy@prmaven.com. And I hope everyone has a great day in PR Maven Nation.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the PR Maven Podcast. I invite you to share a review of the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast player. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. You can also join the PR Maven Nation on Facebook. It's free to join, and it's a great community of like-minded individuals who are all looking to learn and grow from one another. If you use an Alexa device, use your Alexa app to search the skills and games section to find and enable the PR Maven Podcast Flash Briefing. This will give you access to exclusive content and more PR and marketing advice. Thanks again for listening, and have a great rest of your week, PR Maven Nation.